speaker series that features different subject area experts on matters related to land and wildlife management here in the crown of the continent. And tell them I already gave at the office. Yeah, it's really nice to see you. Please, hey, oh my goodness. Hi, Kelsey and Craig. Welcome. No, it's so nice to see you guys. What a pleasant surprise. Anyhow, I also want to just call out real quick a couple of things before I introduce our speaker tonight. First, if you're not already on our mailing list, you can please sign up on the back afterwards. We also have lots of information about different events and activities that are coming up this summer, including this Saturday. The Glacier Half Marathon will be in town, and we're always looking for volunteers to help in the morning. We sort the trash, the recyclables, and the compostables. It's really a fun activity. We get a little bit of a contribution from vacation races for that activity. So if you're able in town and want to give a couple hours of time, you can talk to Jordan about details, but we'll be meeting over at the lodge sometime between 7:30 and 8:30 to get started there with that activity. And then we have a variety of different hikes coming up in the month of July, as well as I believe we have a Trails Day in July and some other stewardship opportunities, so you can check out those on the back table. I also want to give a call out to our friends and partners of the Continental Divide Trail Coalition. Daniel, I'll have you come up here a second, and if you want to say 30 seconds about what you guys do, we'd love to let you do that. But we've done a number of things in the last few years with the Continental Divide Trail Coalition, growing partnerships and trails works, some education around bears and other things. But I'll give you a minute just because I don't know if everyone's familiar with the work your organization does. So
yeah.
That actually doesn't, you don't need to hold that because I don't think it amplifies anything. Is the video on?
My name is Danny Knoll, I'm the Trail Information Manager at UTC. We are based all over the Divide. We have an office in Helena, Montana, in Golden, Colorado, and Santa Fe, New Mexico. We are the lead nonprofit partner for the Continental Divide Trail, which is a national scenic trail, which was designated in 1978. It's administered by the Forest Service, but as you all know, it goes through a lot of Forest Service lands, BLM lands, and Park Service lands, as well as Blackfeet lands and others. So we do all sorts of different types of work, from trail maintenance to the trail's still incomplete, so we're trying to find parcels to complete the trails and our gaps in the trail. I provide trail information to hikers. I'm sure you all live in town, you probably see a lot of our hikers all the time. And so yeah, just really appreciate your community and your organization for having us, and we're doing quite a few events with you all this summer, so I'm really looking forward to it. So yeah, thanks.
That's great. Thank you, Danny. And if you guys want more information about the coalition,
yeah,
you can see Danny in the back after the talk.
Thanks, y'all.
Yeah. It was fun last night. Maybe you probably know we have a little office over on the other side of the tracks, and Jordan and Danny were hosting a bear education talk for through hikers yesterday. We had about 20 or so, some smelly, some not hikers at the office, eating pizza and learning how to travel safely through grizzly bear country. Last thing I want to call out before I introduce Cara is if you followed our newsletter this winter, and you would know that you may have heard about this vegetation management project that's happening in the Middle Fork called Granite-Moccasin. And last week, the Forest Service released the environmental assessment for the Granite-Moccasin vegetation management project. And they're accepting public comment preferably through July 1st. They no longer have official public comment periods. They're now these kind of ad hoc public comment acceptance time frames, but they prefer if you can get public comments in by July 1st. And we're working pretty extensively on this project to try to improve certain aspects of it. It's primarily designed to provide wood products, so there's a bunch of commercial timber harvest, particularly up the Pinnacle and Essex and Dickey Creek drainages, but also in the upper headwaters of Granite Creek and the Skyland. And then there's a bunch of fuels reduction treatments all along the highway, from particularly in the Bear Creek area, around Essex and Nyack as well. And so we were out on a tour last week. Ann Carlson, who's our Associate Director of Conservation, and myself with the Forest Service, learning more about this. It's a fairly complex project that they have going on, and trying to get a best understanding of both what they're trying to do, what the rationale is behind it, and how to best influence it. And we have quite a bit of concern about whether or not the justification for some of the treatments, particularly the fuels reduction, will be effective at the goals the Forest Service is laying out. But we have been really appreciative of the efforts the Forest Service has been made to respond to feedback we've been providing them, particularly around treatment design for wildlife connectivity and habitat. So I got a bunch of information here that gives a quick overview as well as some talking points on the Granite-Moccasin project. And would love if you would consider submitting a comment. There's a QR code that can send you right to where you can get information on the Forest Service website. And we'll be putting some more up on our website, but our web designer has been out on vacation this week, so we're doing it manual, old school right now. But it's a project that has everything from white bark pine restoration to deal with blister rust resistance and some prescribed fire treatments to classic commercial clear-cut logging, and one of the concerns I didn't mention that were particularly worrisome to us is about 7.5 miles of new road building. So it would be part of this. Some of that's existing road that's going to be rehabilitated and added to the Forest Service system. Some of it's altogether new road. And what that means for wildlife habitat security, and particularly winter over snow vehicles that can continue to access a lot of these roads even after they're marked impassable by various means. So a little bit of information is in here, and I'm happy to answer some more questions, particularly if you want to stick around and talk about it afterwards. But Catherine, I saw you have a paper. I am. I'm going to send it out an email as well, probably tomorrow if I get there. But I printed copies tonight, so please grab one and take one with you, and we can just pass it around. I'm going to try to get more information next week up on the website too. It's taken us a little bit of time just to go through all the documents and be prepared to try to provide good information to everybody. But it's one of those ones where there's some good, some bad, and some concerning and some unknowns around it. And it just feels like the analysis for like a lot of Forest Service stuff right now is being really condensed, and there's some real gaps, at least in the analysis that's presented to the public, to understand how together these treatments are going to achieve the goal of reducing fire risk to these communities, particularly in cool, moist forests like we have in the Middle Fork drainage. So please check that out. And it's happened to just be sheer darn good luck that we have someone who's far more of an expert on forest restoration and fire in the West than I am, and that's Dr. Cara Nelson. I'm very excited to have you join us tonight for our speaker series. Cara is a professor and chair of the Department of Ecosystem and Conservation Sciences at the University of Montana's Franke College of Forestry and Conservation. And she's the director of the college's Restoration Ecology Laboratory and chair emeritus of the International Society for Ecological Restoration. Her research program generates knowledge about ecological processes associated with ecosystem degradation and repair, and innovates that knowledge into prescriptions for restorative interventions. Cara led the development of standards of practice for ecosystem restoration for the United Nations environmental programs. She received an Excellent in Wilderness Stewardship Research Award from the U.S. Forest Service, the John Rieger Award for contributions to the Society for Ecological Restoration, and 2 Fulbright Awards from the U.S. State Department for Forest Restoration Research in Chile. And having talked to you on many occasions, but tonight over dinner, I know we're in for a treat with this presentation, and it's particularly appropriate given some of the issues we're dealing with here in the Crown. So without further ado, Dr. Cara Nelson. If you wouldn't mind, capture the audio for us. Thank you.
It is really fantastic to be here. I'm so thrilled to have gotten the invitation to come, and I really view this as a networking opportunity. So I've built in some slides and photos about University of Montana and some other things that I'm involved with at the front end. There are pictures here, many pictures you guys have seen about fire, and I guess it's better if I send over here, in the wildland-urban interface. I'm not going to talk about any of this tonight. Okay, because we all know about this. We know about elevated fire risk. We know about increased fire frequency. So we're just going to get down to business. And my goal, my objective tonight is to clarify and unpack the difference between forest restoration and fire mitigation. Sometimes they're the same, sometimes they're not the same. And why that is because we have many different types of forests and many different types of fire regimes. So that's kind of where we're going. But before we get there, I got to pump University of Montana. University of Montana has a fantastic international reputation, and not so much in the state of Montana. So I want to make sure everybody recognizes the things we do really well. First of all, the College of Forestry is growing. My department, when I came, was 12 ecologists. We're now 22 ecologists. Yep. A lot of what we do is, water, environmental security. These are some of our programs, not all of them. Earth, climate, water sciences, ecosystem restoration, and I will say we are ranked 16th globally in scholarship, specifically in the field of restoration. Parks, tourism, and recreation management. There's not a lot of places in this country where you can study that. At UM, you can. We've got some of the most exceptional people on the planet. Fire science, of course. Leadership there, forest management, saving the best for last, wildlife bio. Does anyone know where our wildlife bio program ranks in North America?
Second.
We are number 1 ranked in North America in wildlife biology. So for all of your natural resource science and management needs, we are here for you at University of Montana. My lab, Restoration Ecology Lab, is improving the science behind the practice, and I hope you will indulge me for 4 slides. I really couldn't decide what to talk about, so I just want to give snippets of a few kinds of things that my lab does, and then we'll get into the talk. So first of all, we work on local adaptation. Local adaptation is ecotypic variation among populations within a species. So when we think about a species, it's the species. We can make inference to the species. But actually there's local ecotypes, and that's incredibly important for restoration. And little known, sometimes there's more variation in traits, like drought traits, among populations within a species than across species. So this is super important for restoration, and my lab has done for the Forest Service northern regions the seed transfer zones, which is the application of local adaptation for some restoration relevant species. Second, I've been working on reference models for restoration. This is going to come up later in my talk, so I won't say more than that, but the goal of restoration. White bark pine is a big program of work for me now. I also work in Chile. This is Nothofagus. It's an endangered, one of their southern beech trees. Okay, third, assessing restoration outcomes. You'll see this graphic later. This is an assessment I did of 44,000 forest restoration treatments. I'm going to talk about that today. But also my lab works on assessing not what happens after restoration. We do that. But I put this here to remind me to say that we work on assessing the efficacy of the monitoring program itself. So, if that makes sense. And then finally, I'll mention this a little today, but I'm here with my QR code. I should have brought stickers. I'm so sad I didn't. But in 2024, we published standards for restoration, and this comes into the talk today, right? People are confused, fire mitigation, restoration. We published standards for UN environmental programs of kind of that baseline. Well, we did principles in 2021, and in 2024, we now have these standards, and it goes through all the components of a restoration project and what is best practice. And there are 311 best practice recommendations. So very quickly, why I'm up here right now, or where I've come from right now with a very, very full bucket, because I have been camping in Glacier. Just like a couple hours ago, left my students with Flathead Lake Biostation. And I don't know, have you guys interacted with the biostation at all?
Yep.
Okay, a couple people. So the this is my students last summer. It is halfway up Flathead Lake, just at the border of the reservation. And it's obviously on ancestral lands. And a few pictures of, we've got classrooms. We have very cute little cabins. People live there. It's residential. And we have courses there. And those courses are for students anywhere. they want to come and take a course, the credits will transfer to their university. These are just what's happening this summer. I won't belabor it. But if you are interested in interacting with the biostation, there are also, in addition to the course program, there's 9 faculty who are there, and maybe you guys drive by there sometimes. I don't know. And they're all working on aquatic, stream issues, really also very active in applied science. Okay, so here's my topics for this evening. What is ecosystem restoration? Secondly, to what extent are fire-adapted forests across the West in need of restoration? And I'm going to be unpacking this in the context of their fire regimes. Third, to what extent are the treatments being located in the high restoration need forests? So what extent are they in need of restoration, and are we locating our treatments where restoration is needed? And then these are really summary points, just so you're not worried that I'm going to go into depth on all these topics. What biophysical factors need to be considered to reduce fire hazard? If it's restoration, fire mitigation, what do we need to be thinking about? And then last, what biophysical factors need to be considered to recover degraded forests? That's really a summary. Okay, everybody ready? Here we go. So the term ecosystem restoration, or the term ecological restoration, really defined as a field in the late 80s. Of course, people were doing restoration before that, but it was ecological restoration. And this was, at the beginning of my career, if you told me that we would be doing as much restoration as we're doing now, I honestly would never have believed it. But sometime around 2000, even a little before that, increasingly different kinds of ecosystem management activities were being called restoration. All of a sudden, everything's restoration. Forest management is now restoration. And so it became important to unpack what restoration is. And there was a little bit of struggle in like the 2010s about this concept of restoration as it grew, because restoration, and I'll put here, this is ecological restoration. People were really clear about what that is, and I'll explain that in a minute. But all of these activities on here, from reducing societal impacts, improving ecosystem management, repairing ecosystem functions, they are all restorative. People were using the term restoration to apply to all of these. And part of the work that I've been doing with UN environmental programs is to have a common lexicon of what is restoration. And so now what the global community is doing is calling all of this, all of these restorative activities. What is a restorative activity? It increases net gain. You have net gain for the environment, for nature, and for people. So for instance, planting non-native trees in a biodiversity-rich grassland to sequester carbon, not a restorative activity, right? However, sustainable agriculture, right, improving soils, restorative activity, not ecological restoration. Okay, you guys with me? So what is this? What is ecological restoration? It has a specific meaning. It aims to recover an ecosystem to the condition it would have been in now if it hadn't been degraded. So I'm so excited to share this definition with you, because if I see one more time in a scientific article today in 2026, people talking about restoration is about recovering historic ecosystems. We all know that ecosystems change, not just because of anthropogenically induced climate change, but there was ice 13,000 years ago. Wholesale changes, right? So this is the appropriate definition of restoration, is we're allowing for the ecological trajectory of a site and not trying to hold the earth stable at 1880. So restoration is based on reference models characterizing the condition an ecosystem would have been in, that definition I gave you, based on multiple key attributes and indicator variables for each of these attributes. So species composition, structural diversity, functions, importantly, external exchanges, connectivity, gene flow, all of that, absence of threats, and I skipped physical condition. And then just to emphasize, this concept of restoration plays differently depending on the context of where you live. And so, for instance, the UN Convention on Combating Desertification, why are they doing restorative activities? Because people are starving and there's warfare, right? And so they're not doing ecological restoration. They're improving soils and, human well-being by providing livelihoods. Okay, so now that, because our topic today is restoration of fire-adapted forests, I wanted to start just framing what we're talking about with restoration, be it ecological restoration, right, or restorative activities. But the key thing is, I missed it, is that if you're doing restoration, the system is degraded, right? Otherwise, you're not doing restoration. The basic premise is you have some kind of degradation. So now I want to talk about fire-adapted forests and whether they're degraded across the West. So this is a picture of Wild Horse Island where I was with my students a couple days ago. And so what do you think? This kind of forest, open, ponderosa pine forest, you guys have seen this. Degraded, has its fire regime been affected? Yeah, right? These forests, and these data are not from Wild Horse Island, to be clear, but this here shows fire occurrence and tree establishment. Okay? So each of these bars is a fire. So the fire regime, and a fire regime is the frequency of fire, the severity of fire, and the intensity, and the extent of fire. So here, pretty obvious, very frequent natural fire regime. Here we have fire suppression, and there's no fire, effective fire suppression. And so this y-axis here is tree establishment, low tree establishment, high tree establishment. So here we have a forest structure that is very different, and to be clear, not just from fire suppression, also from other management activities like putting cattle in these forests, which creates great mineral soils, seed beds for these shade-tolerant conifers to grow. But we are clearly seeing a different structure in terms of regeneration of these shade-tolerant trees. We're clearly seeing a disruption of the fire cycle. So I have labeled these high restoration need. But to be clear, not every forest in this type of low elevation, open ponderosa pine, this kind of fire regime is in need of restoration. But if you were predicting what might need restoration, where you might want to evaluate disruption of a fire regime, these types of forests would be ones that might be in high need. Okay, where you have fuel buildup. All right, this is a picture from yesterday on Mount Brown Glacier. We're hiking through the, high elevation lodgepole, some little bit of larch patches left after the fire, a couple of the Doug fir patches up there. What about this? Have we seen a disruption in the fire regime? Well, this kind of forest has these high elevation, mid to high elevation, lodgepole pines, a perfect example. They have infrequent fire. right? The temporal period in which they don't experience fire is longer than we've been suppressing fires, right? So fire suppression has not affected them, these kinds of forests. And we can see this here, fire occurrence. Here's a fire. There's a fire in 1700, right? Nothing we have done has affected the frequency of fires in the system. They haven't missed a fire cycle. And the tree establishment, you can see coming in here, after the fire, but spotty after. Fire suppression error, it's not really different. I have categorized these as low need. So these are high severity fire regimes, and they are also low frequency. And I forgot to say that when these fires burn, they burn hot. They burn at high severity, right? And the tree species are adapted. So I don't know if anyone's been up that Mount Brown Trail, but you see all the lodgepole are gone. If there's no patches of Doug fir or larch, what do you get? You get lodgepole, right? Because that's how they evade the fire. They've got the serotinous cones. There's a ton of seed of lodgepole. You might get some Doug fir and some larch. The seeds have to come into the stand. There's no seed bed in the stand. They have to like roll down the hill from other places. But the fires that are burning in these systems are natural fire cycles, natural fire regime. They're not out of whack. We have integrated them. We might not like fire in these systems. We might want to do management in these systems to try to reduce fire hazard. I was going to mention this later, but I'm kind of on a roll right now. It's hard to manage fire in these systems because they're not driven by fuels. If you have fewer fuels, you're still going to get the stand to totally burn. And that's because of topography. Remember the fire triangle? Topography is one side of the triangle, and weather is the other side. And so these are going to burn when you have those like 95, percent fire weather condition, and steep topography, because it's all going to be preheated. So there's really not a lot we could do. We could do fuels treatments. We're probably going to get the same severity of a fire. Okay, here's another one. These beautiful hemlock cedar forests that we have, in this area, they're amazing. They're different from the, high severity lodgepole, but they're similar in that they have very, very low frequency fire, maybe 800 years, right? Nothing we've done with fire suppression has affected the fire regime in these forests. These forests are not in need of restoration. Okay, now we have the more complicated, and it's more complicated, plus it's a lot of Montana. And this is these complex, mixed severity, intermediate frequency fire regimes where the fuels buildup is variable. And they're called mixed fire regimes. I like to call them unknown or uncertain fire regimes. And there's just a lot of heterogeneity. So to understand them, we would need to study them a lot more. And we don't really know. We don't have a good sense of what these forests need. So I'll call them mixed unknown. Okay, so now I'm going to show you a little bit of work I've done. So fire regime groups is something that the Forest Service is using, conservation groups are using. I talked about fire frequency and fire severity, and so here we've just gone through what I've talked about. So we've got these